Now, as you know, as part of my All Patched Up series, I've revisited Hello Games' No Man's Sky, maybe 8, 9 times? And it turns out that behind the scenes, they have been watching. And they've sponsored this revisit where we're going to look at not only what they've done so far, but also what they've now done on Nintendo Switch 2 with what is a completely free update that you can download if you own the original game. There will be a link in the description if you want to go check the game out, and it obviously shows them this was a good place to sponsor a dedicated video. A thanks to those guys. If you'd like to win a copy of the game, just let me know what you think of, No Man's Sky, I guess, and maybe what Sean Murray and the team over at Hello Games have done with the game. Why do I think this is possibly one of the best patched up games on Nintendo Switch and now Switch 2? Well, let's find out. So before we look at the Switch 2 release, let's have a little recap of the most recent big changes that Hello Games made to No Man's Sky on Switch 1 before they released this huge change with the Switch 2 version. Now, the first thing to note then, if we want the Switch 2 version, is that it does support full cross progression. This uses Hello Games Cloud Cross Save, and it launched with Beacon. In terms of what you're getting then, this is the full experience as well. Not only does it have the main game, all of the extra gameplay modes that were added. You've got things like survival mode, creative, the standard game mode, which is a mixture of both of those elements, and a few others as well. But the big one is multiplayer, as well as the settlements that were added. I think the biggest way to see the changes is if we first look at my original No Man's Sky review on Switch 1. As you can see, although they'd managed to get it to run, I think they did miracles to get it looking this good, honestly. And you still had things like the ability for the game to dynamically load so that when you moved up into space, you had a few stutters, but it was still quite seamless. And the same went for base building and other areas, but base building was the one that really affected performance the most. Jumping over to the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, well, it's certainly a little more crispy, isn't it? The visuals see a significant improvement from the textures to the model quality, the resolution. The UI even saw a resolution bump as well, which is always nice and potentially something you may not notice until you see those together. As well as this, we have full gyro support, there's touchscreen elements as well, and I mentioned cross save. The multiplayer also features crossplay, essentially meaning you can carry on your No Man's Sky game now, whichever platform you're playing on. The level of detail draw distance is much better, so the actual planets themselves, if you find one that has more objects or foliage, or perhaps it has water, these elements look much nicer. They're sharper, shadow resolution is improved, and while the frame rate isn't perfect, it's certainly much more stable than it was before. It was Hello Games that were the first to use AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2 FSR2 on Nintendo Switch 1, and if you remember, about the midway part of No Man's Sky's life on Switch 1, we suddenly saw that big improvement in terms of visual quality, and that was the reason. I think a lot of people really took notice of the potential of those technologies on hardware that doesn't quite have the same grunt as the other consoles. Now that they do have a little more under the hood, it is so much nicer to play. With that initial port, Sean described it as at the edge of what was possible, what loads of us would call a miracle port, and clearly they can now push well beyond that. It's interesting as well because Nintendo felt that this team were worthy of a dev kit. I wonder if that's just looking back at the history of how much effort they put in with Switch 1. I'm sure it is. So much so that they had a dev kit and they had a small room, I believe, Sean said in an interview, that was sealed off from everywhere else where they were working away quietly on the port. And let's be realistic, compared to a lot of the other games that we've had, even on Switch 2 so far, this is one of the best optimized. It shows a care and attention, and yes, you could argue that using your own proprietary engine makes things easier, certainly when we look at the likes of Unreal, which seems to be struggling at the moment in terms of some of its optimization, but I actually think it's not that. I think it's just the fact that they clearly wanted it to work and put the effort in. You only have to look at what Panic Button did on Switch 1. So as far as pricing goes, it's going to cost you nothing if you own it at the moment in its Switch 1 version. That also goes on sale quite often, so you can pick it up quite cheaply and then just upgrade whenever you want. So when it comes to gameplay then, if you've not played them in a while, well, We have the 18 quintillion unique planets that were spoken of when the game originally released. Each of those has its own biomes, weather, flora, fauna and resources, and yes, they use procedural generation, with a percentage chance of you seeing certain things. Having said that, each planet has things like traders, sometimes unique locations, and of course there's a chance that you bump into a planet that's already been discovered. In that instance, it might have a name, but the addition of multiplayer means that you can finally show off your own creations and bases. On Switch 2, those planets just feel much less empty. So what do you do on those planets? Well, you can gather resources. You've got a multi-tool that's got two functions. One of those is scanning, the other is mining, so you'll be able to mine those resources once you've scanned them, and this is added to your personal inventory or that of your ship, and you can fast switch between the two of them. And you also have a weapon as well, like a laser that you can fire at enemies. When I say enemies, that's generally the inhabitants of the planets. Sometimes when you scan them, you'll see that they're hostile. Now, you can try and stay out of their way, but yeah, there's a chance that won't work out very well. And then you've got these sentinels as well, the guardians of certain planets that may not enjoy the amount of resources that you're borrowing at any given time. The main enemy that you may find though are actually the environments on the planets. You have a life support system of sorts in your suit that may be recharged with things like oxygen, ferrite or carbon, but if that life support goes too low, especially if the planet is either very hot, maybe it's a lava planet, you're going to be in real trouble, and that's where you could find yourself in a bit of a pickle. Now, once you've got your resources, built up your ship and charged it up, maybe you've explored your first planet, there are some times where you'll find ships that have either been abandoned or destroyed, and you can actually take those and then you'll have to repair them by gathering up new resources. And as well as this, once you do get the ability to fly out into space, you can dock at huge space stations. The cool thing with No Man's Sky is that there's like a language system. Initially, you won't know the language of the other alien races, and then by uncovering little secrets and archives, you gradually learn it, and it means your interactions become a lot more meaningful. And then as the stories, if you choose to follow them, are undertaken, you get much more of the lore and history. And for me, that's where the biggest joy comes from. For others, it might be just stopping everything and building a base and a home on a planet, whereby you lay down a beacon and then gain a load of different controls to manipulate the environment. But yeah, I like to have a purpose. So building a home and then venturing out on these various different stories, and as the DLCs were added in, we got new stories each time. You've got a ton to go for if you've not played it. Now, settlements is a really interesting one actually. Once again, they go deeper than what even was initially promised, in that you can become your own mayor. You become a mayor of your own town. You'll have to approve constructions, things like bars, ponds, merchant stalls, but your town can come under attack, so you might be raided by pirates. You might even just want to create a town that's completely run by autonomous robots. And in that regard, you have a lot of choice in how you play the game. And actually, it's not one where you could play it wrong, but it's certainly one where you could miss a lot of what is actually there. I guess the main areas of No Man's Sky are exploration, building, trading, fighting, so dogfights and things like that, and just collecting and being a bit of a scientist. One of the DLCs they released reminded me of the film Dune. You went to this planet and there were these massive sandworms. It was really epic. Now, there are other elements. There are frigates and freighters, there are portals, galactic hubs. If you're a science nerd or science fiction nerd like me, you're gonna love it. You can tame pets now. I remember when they introduced that, so you could be riding around on your own little creature. But as I said at the start, I would love to give away a copy or two to people that have never played the game. If you are interested in it, please do click the link down in the description, leave a comment down below, and a big thank you to Hello Games for sponsoring this episode. It feels like, I don't know, it's quite nice, isn't it? After the amount of revisits that we've done for the game in the past, it's great to be working with them. Thank you to our Patreons, all of you that enjoy our content. We've got a lot of reviews coming out as well, so make sure you keep it Switch up for all things Switch all the time. Well, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!